Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haidar Al-hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hello, Roshni. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Haidar. How are you?
I'm very well. Now that we've got you on the podcast, it's taken us, 10 years?
Yeah, feels like it, doesn't it? Third time lucky, we say. Third time lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. I think third time lucky for me was finding my wife. That was the third time lucky.
Oh, that's nice. Make sure she listens to this episode.
Oh, no, I mean, I pretend that she doesn't listen to it so I can say whatever I want. It's a bit like my book. When I wrote my book, I just sort of blocked out the wife, the parents, everyone else, because otherwise you get this kind of remorse or block or writer's block.
That's interesting. Yeah, writer's block in a different way. You're censoring your book is amazing. Admittedly, I'm still reading it. Apologies.
How much have I paid you for this? Just as a disclaimer.
Everyone who's listening, Haidar hasn't paid me at all. There's evidence on Twitter. I have fully declared it is a great book, and I will do a review at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, it took me I think three years to kind of find my way of or my style of writing.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be easy, but it wasn't. It just took such a long time to find, how can I express myself in the written form.
But it feels really natural as a reader. I'll tell you that because I've met you before briefly.
Yeah,
and so I think that's how I write, hopefully, or that's how I write as I sound, which isn't always appropriate. Obviously, you tailor it. But I think I felt, I was getting to know you through that book. Even, we don't know each other very well. And it's really lovely to actually get to chat to you today. But yeah, I actually felt your style was really authentic, honest, expressing yourself really beautifully, I thought. There were lots of yes moments for me, and I'm sure there will be for many other medics and healthcare professionals that read your book.
Yeah. That book's for me, really. That's the reason why I wrote it.
Yeah.
And as a side effect, I think it resonates with some people. Obviously, it won't resonate with everyone.
No. If it helps someone else, great.
Yeah. And when did you first realize that sort of books and writing and reading was your thing?
Oh, since I was a little one. A long time ago. So I was always had a book in my hand. I was scribbling some little stories. Stories is what I used to write. I used to make little book. I can still see myself. So the room next door, where my dad is now, used to be my bedroom. And so I'd be by the window typing on my typewriter. Shows you how old I am. Typewriters existed, or we were using typewriters back in the day in the 70s. And I loved it. I just get really absorbed. And that's what I love about writing. So being able to sort of have time to do writing and use writing in my work, sort of not practicing medicine anymore, but drawing all those threads of myself into writing for well-being and writing creatively for myself as a hobby. I'm actually just doing a memoir class. I'm going to someone else's, and it's absolutely fabulous. So what you were just saying resonates with me. We're learning all sorts of stuff, drawing out themes. What is it you're actually writing about? But yeah, sorry, that was a long way of answering. I've always written. Then there was a massive gap going on from sort of school, streaming into sciences, secondary school, needing to get into medical school. And that whole looking at the prospectuses, does anyone accept humanities in 1990? That was the year I was applying, finishing school. Not really. Did I want to hedge my bet? So that was a sort of, so I didn't do any humanities A levels. So that's fine. I've made up for it.
Yeah.
I've made up for it later.
Who was the author that really sort of influenced you when you were younger? that really...
So books, did you say? Sorry.
Author.
Oh, author. I mean, I was the classic Anne of Green Gables fan, so it doesn't matter if people are laughing out there. I know there are many fans, but that's sort of a coming of age story. So Ellen Montgomery, Canadian author. I mean, it's a classic of a young girl growing up, back in the day in rural Canada in Nova Scotia, but just her sense of, Anne Shirley is the main character, and I think any fan of literature of those books will know exactly what I mean. She uses language such as kindred spirit. I was having an exchange with someone on Twitter about that phrase. I use it, that's where I learned it. But just the sense, a young girl who's quite independent, quite feisty, and creative, and loves her poetry and loves her reading. Okay, she's slightly dramatic. Next question is going to be, can you draw any parallels to yourself, Roshni? But yeah, in a way, yeah, there's a bit of Anne Shirley in me. There's a bit of Anne Shirley in some of my friends I can recognize, but that sort of free spirit, I think, is a word that's been used about me. And I'm sort of, yeah, I think so. So sorry, that was a long way of saying, yeah, that's the one author I can remember. Also, I mean, that I would say, but, also used to read a lot of fantasy science fiction. I sort of grew up writing that and reading that. So actually quite like to write, or try to write, mainly sort of, they call it slipstream. So a bit of a mixture, not hard science fiction, but I do belong to a really great writers group called Clock. And let me do a plug for Clock House Writers London. So we meet monthly. I don't always make it, but online now it's really inspiring. A lot of amazing writers in that, published writers, and I feel a little bit of not going to say the IS word, but sometimes I was like, when I first joined, it was like, oh, okay, but it's great. It's inspiring to be amongst other people who write and talk about writing and share ideas about writing.
And what was the most dramatic thing you did as a child?
What was the most dramatic thing?
Yeah.
I was a pretty quiet child in that I am an introvert, and I always joke that people don't believe that, because I can and I've joked with you, haven't I? Chat and chat and chat. Limit me on what I'm saying today, but I will chat away. But I think that's what's called an ambivert. I'm trying to think of something dramatic I did. There was nothing particularly dramatic that I did as a child.
Well, probably going from humanities to medicine. I think that was quite dramatic.
Oh, that was later. I'd grown up a bit. Yeah, no, exactly. All the dramatic things I've done have been more in my adulthood, I think, sort of late, shall I say, late teenage rebellion, but not a rebellion. Now, oh no, that's a hook now that you can use. I say I'm a quiet rebel at heart. I'm not, like some of my friends and colleagues are activists and really passionate about I'm passionate about what I do and what I believe in, don't get me wrong. And that's creativity and writing in particular, and using that with healthcare professionals and with the public, because that's what I do in my work with Storied Cells, which is my little business, writing for well-being. But yeah, changing from, I don't see it as a change from medicine, because I'm very much rooted still in medicine, and that's a whole issue, isn't it, about identity, which is always at the forefront of how I think and what I talk about, and when I'm interacting with other colleagues and on social media, for example. Identity is something that's always drawn me. And I don't think you can, and someone else asked me recently, another colleague who isn't a clinician, but, who are you? Who's the self? And it made me think, and we were just on an introductory Zoom, and it was, yeah, we can label ourselves, can't we? Doctor, and I don't like to do it, but we do it naturally, because society does enforce that on us, doesn't it? For better or worse, doctor or medic, writer, daughter, sister, etc., etc. So these are all roles, but actually what Mike made me think was, and I said it aloud, is, who actually am I, Roshni Beeharry? I haven't answered that yet. So though I have, in my head, I'm sort of answering it. So yeah, it's really interesting to have those sort of, those sort of thoughts, or have discussions with people that provoke those sort of thoughts. So from a career change point of view, I think I sort of describe it as a sidestep from clinical medicine into academia. So teaching has always been my passion, I think, and sometimes it's always been at the core of me, sort of communicating, developing other people, but also developing myself. I mean, clearly I've done 3 degrees. I love to learn. I think it's evident. I do like learning. I like learning by talking to other people. I like learning from, reading and, all the different methods of learning and just being open to learning. And I was talking to I'm teaching health and social care students at the moment in a online setting at a private university. And it's fantastic because yes, I miss my lovely medical students, don't get me wrong, but it's really refreshing to be able to work with a different population, truly interdisciplinary education, which is a big passion of mine, truly interdisciplinary, and that they're mature students that are coming back to studying from maybe not having studied first degrees it's a foundation degree. First place, some of them are career changing, a bit like me. But just sort of talking about, and we're doing, and the modules I'm teaching are brilliant. They're for reading modern society, perfect for me. We're reading George Orwell, Oliver Sacks, and Polly Toynbee. So social sciences. So I'm learning. I'm having to learn because the last social sciences type of degree that I've done is my creative writing and personal development degree, which I did at Sussex. And I did that in 2003 to 2005, whilst I was a busy registrar in rehabilitation medicine in Northwest London. So I was on my training rotation, but I was so interested in, the impact of what writing did for me and returning to writing and pivotally after my brother's death, exactly 25 years ago last week, when I first started writing poetry. That really helped me with my grief process, which is ongoing. I mean, it's still ongoing 25 years later. I wouldn't be talking about it and I wouldn't be writing about it and podcasting about it. So that grief is an ongoing process. I think we'll all agree, those of us who've lost people, and losing a sibling, I don't think there aren't any words for it. So sorry if I become a bit emotional.
That's understandable. This was during your medical training.
It was. Yeah, it was 6 weeks. He died 6 weeks before finals. And you know what? The most brilliant. We had a very strict. I trained at St Mary's in London, and we had, classic training, and it was great. It was brilliant. Small medical school, and really old-fashioned consultants who would scare you. But I remember lovely, and I still remember his name. Obviously, I won't say, excuse me. And he's going to be retired by now, but he was the undergraduate tutor, and he was really lovely and offered me, and the registry team, I will always remember them. They're things you don't forget, people you don't forget. And they arranged a meeting with him, and he talked to me about, and I was in a flux of, I've been called back home, etc. I don't know what to do. My brother's about to pass away, basically. What do I do? Do I do finals? We're 6 weeks away. So, and he was just really kind. My brother died of colon cancer, and the consultant happened to be a gastroenterologist. And he just sort of said, look, you've done really well. You've come this far. Just carry on with finals, but obviously go home, be with your parents. And, if there's any, and I just can see him now and the exact office I'm in at Mary's Hospital, which isn't used as a medical school now, the medical school opposite the hospital. And he said, if there's anything I can do. Wasn't expecting to cry. But do you know how powerful that is? I think you do know you do know how powerful that is. Let me say to anyone who's listening to me blubbering away, that showing interest in someone, in a colleague, in a student, I think, he was one of my role models. A lot of my role models were male consultants. Oh gosh, I've started Haidar off, everyone. Sorry. Right, get it together. So that's a good message, isn't it? You've got students, you've got so many students. So I know that we're all at different stages of our career. I think being a student's a really vulnerable time. I've got lots of lovely friends who are at different stages, and I've got lots of colleagues who are consultants as well. And we often share these experiences, or would be nice to share them together. But I find the Twitter community, people who know me will know I'm on it a lot. But it's kept me really connected, actually. I've been on, trying to get university jobs this past year. But anyway, coming back to my messages, reaching out, it's so important for people's mental health, which impacts their physical health. Just offering that, just saying, is there anything I can do? This scary consultant was really lovely. He took the time to sit with me. And I've been lucky enough to experience, there's a lot of, negativity I can see on social media against seniors and I'll call it senior bashing, shall I? I think we're both consultant level. I used to be a consultant in rehabilitation medicine, so just 5 years before I left for teaching in undergraduate. I don't think anyone's sort of, well, I don't know, they might be referring to me, 5 years ago, this consultant did this. Well, I hope not. I hope I wasn't that type of consultant.
Well, we're human, Roshni.
Well, yeah. But we are human. Yes, we're human, and we're vulnerable, and we're fallible.
We make mistakes. Yeah,
we make mistakes, exactly. We get upset with people.
You saw all the mistakes I've made in my book. It's an absolute disaster.
And that's how we learn.
Yeah.
And I think humility, and I do talk about this a lot to myself, to the Twitter sphere, and lots of other people do, and I really like reading what other people think as well. Being human is at the core of everything. That's sort of stating the obvious, Roshni. That's not very profound, but we are human, and it comes back to identity. We're human first, and you said that on quite a few podcasts. I was listening to a brilliant podcast with Dr. Ross and Pauline, amazing Dr. Pauline of Doctors Caring for Doctors, and all comes back to identity. It's really hard, isn't it, to enmesh? It's so enmeshed being a doctor, but actually, we weren't born doctors. Well, I wasn't. Someone once said to me, well, you're a writer first, then you're a doctor. And I said, and that was another writer in a writing group I belonged to 25 years ago. She's not a clinic, nothing to do with medicine. I thought that was really lovely. She told me that about 25 years ago. I was qualified and stuff when I just joined a writing group. It's sort of, do we need to unpick our identity? Sometimes we do. But I think at the core is knowing who you are at the core. And look, I didn't know I was going to cry. It's not a problem. Crying really helps me. Yeah.
I mean, identity helps others. Doesn't really help ourselves. I mean, we know who we are. So it's just a way of, showing people who we are. It's because we know who we are. The problem arises is when you don't know who you are. Yeah. Yes. Then it gets all mixed up, because then you're using identities from other people in order to identify yourself. Yeah. And that's possibly where role modeling comes in. I mean, in medicine, where role modeling comes in. Yeah, I mean, as you said, we are vulnerable in earlier age years, and also as students to our teachers. So that's where the responsibility comes from. Yeah. So it's important. Yeah. So it's important to sort of say to the student, it's all about you. I'm just here to give you some ideas, but the rest is actually about your identity. Yeah, it's exactly what I was saying to my students yesterday. It's sort of your adult learners. So we're trying to empower them that it's, I'm here to sort of, it's a sort of term scaffolding, isn't it? I'm here to support you, but actually you're doing the work, which might sound a little bit harsh, but no, I mean, said in the right way. But that's exactly it. We're here to support each other. I've learned from other people, and we've picked, haven't we, either subliminally or consciously. Yeah. Oh, I quite like that style. And I've recently reunited with my previous, I won't say old, previous registrar, who's a consultant now, and it's so lovely to be able to say, actually, you really influenced me. You are my number one role model. And he said he was really touched. But I think things like that. I think actually there's a lot of criticism about medics. We get enough. I'm still a medic, I suppose. So there goes the identity clash. We get a lot of flack from the public. I mean, I can see it all in the media, and I'm not in practice anymore. But I do. It does make me sharp intake of breath. So it goes from vilification to the collapse on a Thursday, which I know a lot of friends who are medics and
colleagues and just reading in the media, you know, have different varying views for. And where am I going with this thread? But yes, if we're, you know, we have a lot of external judging. So please let's not judge each other as well, because we are all part of one community. You know, one, the human race is the bigger picture, as we're coming back to being human and fallible and vulnerable. But actually, we should all be there to support each other. And that's not just doctors, it's work, you know, we work as teams, we don't work in silos. And I'm glad to see there is, and I've noticed in medical, you know, 25 years, I have noticed changes. And I was involved recently with the Academy of Medical Educators and some other wonderful colleagues in, you know, organising an interdisciplinary, a small interdisciplinary conference called Interrobang. And that was great because we tried to draw people, you know, we tried to make it as interdisciplinary as possible, you know, not just us, a bunch of medics. So we had, you know, my speech therapy colleague and friend, but, you know, trying to break down those silos of we're all in it together. What's it? I mean, I'm talking way before COVID and way beyond COVID. I mean, I've been talking about hashtag beyond COVID since last year. It's not taken off yet. Maybe it will. But you know, we need this is an awful time. And you know, I always want to say thanks to all of you and your clinical colleague, you know, for keeping us all going and looking after the, you know, community and looking after us all, where in whichever countries, to all my colleagues. You're doing an amazing job. And sometimes I think it's hard to recognize that when you're immersed in the maelstrom. And I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't voice that to each other. You know, I don't mean gratuitous pats on the backs, etc. But, you know, if you're at work and someone's done something good, be they, you know, sometimes a senior colleague, you know, you might have a consultant who's done something that supports you. It's really nice to feed that back to them in an appropriate way. I don't know what your experiences have been, but it's really nice. To have someone write something or say something to you or write an email and just say, you know, Dr. Beeharry, thanks for your time that day. And that's not to build my ego up. What that shows is I'm not in a bubble by myself and I'm up there. I personally hope I've never put myself up on a pedestal. I just don't think I'm that sort of person. I hope my friends would support me. Friends that know me closely know that I'm not that sort of person that would put myself up on a pedestal. And yeah, you're down there, student. And that makes me really upset when I read reports of medical students being on the periphery and feeling on the periphery. So whenever I'm teaching or whenever I'm working with a group who I might never meet again, so I do sessional teaching at various medical schools. So, you know, it's just to remind them. So when someone says, but Dr. Beeharry, I'm just a medical student. And I say, stop there, please. And I say it like that in a comical, I use a lot of humor. It's just me. And I said, stop there, please. You are not just anything. You are part of the team. You are part of the team. And, you know, that's how I was treated. I mean, yeah, well, I was treated in different ways, obviously through different stages by different consultants. But the people that stick in my mind and the thing that I carry through, I hope, as a clinician, as an educator, is trying to empower other people to see that they matter, that we all have a value. It doesn't matter. I wrote a poem about it, etc., and I recorded it for a colleague, Nicola Davis. She was doing some work with the Royal College of Radiologists, and it was inspired about this terminology, you know, resilience, and what does that mean? I'm not going to, you know, go into a whole diatribe. I'm not an expert.
Do you want to read it, or is it not under your hands?
It's not to hand, but you can access it. You can access it. See, we should have prepared, but I did think about that. But it's the first time I have been a little bit activist, which was like, and I can send, you know, we can attach it to the program notes if you want, if anyone really wants to see me, a little video of me. And I'll pop it on Twitter or whatever. But it's really me saying, don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, because we've all been through that, through our, you know, whatever upbringings. We bring that with us. And we should not bring it to other people. We should not be here. I don't think that's our role in life as healers, as people. You have to question what your role in life is. And that comes, doesn't it, Haidar, at different stages of our lives as we grow older. And I certainly, you know, I think I know who I am. I've known who I am from quite an early age. And a lot of my friends I went to school with said, yeah, you've always, you know, that whole saying, old head on, young shoulders. I think that's a fair comment. Oh, look at the grey hairs coming through. But yeah,
no hair on
bless you.
on old shoulders.
Exactly. And there's a wisdom with life and life experiences. I mean, what I've just shared has impacted my life. You know, though I haven't been thinking of it consciously, I've been too busy as a doctor. If you don't stop and think and stop and reflect, what life does to you is it stops you. And that's what happened to me the year after my brother died. And I was very severely unwell with depression. So
how did you survive work then, you know, with you know, such a trauma, and then you started the house jobs and
yeah,
you know, the whole hell of that, you know,
oh, I
experience.
loved it. I'm a total atypical medic. See, I loved being a doctor. I didn't leave medicine because I didn't love being a doctor. I left medicine because I loved doing something else. My passion is teaching. I don't need to defend this, but I do. I didn't burn out. Oh, wow, Roshni, that's an accolade. You know, I'm not saying that's, I just want to make it clear. It's really important to know, because there's a lot of people wanting to leave medicine, that you can leave medicine, that's your choice, but do it for the right reason. I have never looked back. It has been the best decision that I made in March 2011. Because education has always been something I wanted to combine with my clinical career. Unfortunately, in my small specialty of rehabilitation medicine, you know, not so many options to become an undergraduate. Maybe I could have been, you know, I sort of think now, oh, well, if I was still hospital medicine, I would be doing that, you know, those are the type of roles I'd be doing. You know, I was an educational supervisor, I was leading for the department in both my consultant jobs. But sorry, I'll lose a thread. I do this and then I eventually come back. Total tangential thinking. Getting up really unwell interrupted my career. So I was a year in, I was just about to start, I was just starting my senior house officer year. So in old money, the senior house officer year is the core medical trainee language now, isn't it? So I'd done my first year of house jobs, and what had happened is I'd moved away from home for the first time. So I studied in London, I live in London, I am a Londoner. I'm back home now. So I moved away properly for the first time with my parents' blessing, because I was still, you know, I'd done finals, did really well, whatever, and well, passed, that's the main thing. And my parents were, no, you need to go. They're not medical, I'm not from an immediately medical family. Yeah, so I went, and I didn't breathe, and I didn't think, and I, you know, remember what, I will always tell this story. I remember one day of having, I think, had a day off or had some time off after on call, the luxury, yeah, of working 1 in 3, let me just drop that in, was being in my lovely new residential room. We had lovely ensuite rooms, such a luxury then, at the lovely hospital out in Buckinghamshire, and just crying and just weeping. And then, okay, I've stopped crying now, that's done. Knowing in my heart that's not done. But you know what, as you say, the madness of medical life takes over. Learning, being part of a team. So you carry on, moved back to London, lived in for my next job. Amazing, I'll always love that hospital, Central Middlesex, where I trained, surgical house job. Noticed the energy flagging towards the end of that year. Noticed my confidence going down a little bit. You know, one of these people that really loved what I did, was good at what I did, no issues, no complaints, loved it. Loved the business of it, I think. I always thrived on that. Certainly recently I've slowed down, though my friends will say, really? You do so much, Roshni, quote unquote, will go on my gravestone, I think. But then I noticed the difference when I became an SHO. Confidence just went. I can remember distinctly. So here are some, I think psychiatrists call it signature signs. There's a new phrase I've learned from psychiatry colleagues. But yeah, not sleeping properly, worrying about, I didn't know how to, I can remember specifically telling my non-medical mum, waking her up, so this is not normal, waking up in the middle of the night and saying, I can't remember how to treat a deep vein thrombosis. You know, that's not normal. So lots of, and I knew it wasn't normal, but I didn't know what to do about it. And asking my registrar, look, I'm really not confident. After a year of being confident and, you know, dealing with cardiac arrests, okay, and being part of a team, suddenly not being confident. Sorry, there's the sound of me clicking fingers. I do that a lot. Not being confident and asking for help. asking, could you back me up? And being really anxious about on calls. So those were my signs. And then luckily, not second time in my life, a really inspirational consultant took me aside, not wanting to go into work. So, and asked me the question. So she asked me the question, she didn't tell me. And she's a very well-known geriatrician. So I was doing geriatrics, care of the elderly at the time, which I loved. Do you think, talk to me a bit in her office, and then said, do you think you could be depressed? Because I know you lost your brother last year. My response, and I was thinking about this morning, was, no, I don't think so. Because I was like, well, I don't recognize, I know what the textbook signs of depression are. I've studied them at medical school. I know what they are, I'm relatively, well-read, whatever. No, don't think so. And well, so she was the lady, I would say, that saved my life from that point on. Change, that it was a turning point, I suppose. So another doctor, again, reaching out, a senior doctor, reaching out to a junior doctor, another role model, another thing that people should be aware of, that they should be doing, whatever stage you are, be you a core medical trainee and you notice a colleague in difficulty, or you get a sense of it. I think we all have a gut feeling. We are all caring people in the caring professions. And even if you're not, you get a gut feeling when your friends or your colleagues are not quite right. And I'm seeing a lot of evidence of that, which is fantastic. Just ask, just arrange something private. Maybe, I know it's really difficult now, but, and particularly, with distance, etc. But just do. I've converting my friends to little voice messages on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So can you imagine my voice? I'll do it to you one day, Haidar. So just send a little message. I have chronic pain, so I have a disability effectively, along with a whole list of other things, a litany of other things. So it's hard to type and I get really tired. Yeah. So just supposed to rest my hands, so I'm on the PC, obviously, for work and stuff. And just,
yeah, I mean, you do write long emails, I must say.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to hoot with laughter because everyone listening who knows me will go, you just found that out, Haidar. Okay, look, I'm improving. All right. Concision has never been my strength.
I just write yes, no, see you next week. That good.
My best friend, yeah. She's not a medic. She says, sorry, Roshni, I might come over as clinical, and I'm not clinical. I just say, no, it's fine. We are who we are.
Yeah.
Because the day you don't get a long email from me, it might be quite worrying, mightn't it? No, I'm joking. So anyway, I've converted people to little voice messages. So it's, hi,
yeah, but those voice messages take like 24 hours anyway. It's like, fuck's sake, just say yes, that's enough.
Get to the point. Yeah. So that spells volumes about me, people. And that's probably the writer in me, and just the general chatter in me.
Yeah, there's a lot of content there, and we just don't have time to process the content.
Exactly. But sometimes if you care enough about someone, I'm not criticizing, but sometimes if you pay attention to the content, that's where the richness is, that's where the message is. And sometimes it could be where the cry for help is, actually, if we think about what we've just been talking about. For someone to actually make the effort to communicate can be really difficult, can't it? We all know if we've been depressed or if we're anxious, and sometimes we don't, and sometimes it takes another person to make that move, I think is what I'm saying.
When did you realize you were turning the corner? About sort
very
of
well.
Healing or sort of
that first time. So I was 26. So formative years, the frontal lobe of the brain. I mean, I was near a rehab, so I've been thinking about this recently, and still keep in touch with that sort of side of the world. But I think the turning point was, I remember, it was about writing poetry, and I joined a writing group, and I can remember clearly being in a park and feeling, and nature is massive. I should not forget to mention nature. So my two therapies, all I need is, if I'm feeling a bit grumpy or a bit angry, is just step outside. My garden's wild, in COVID, thank the Lord that I've got a garden, because there are so many people that aren't blessed to have an outdoor space. And I'm glad to say I've stayed really well this year. It's been a really horrible year. Don't get me wrong, I'm not minimizing. Horrible years for everyone. And but for me, it's actually been a really good time for me to just gather myself and reflect.
Yeah, I mean, introverts have done really well in the last year.
Yeah, exactly. It's introvert. It's like, Do you know what? So I used to commute 2.5 hours to South London for my first academic job, from north to south, and then come back and be shattered. And it's like, oh, it's lovely. I loved being around people, but yeah, let me just shut the world, my front door on the world. Yeah, really, it's glamorous life I led. Stick the TV on or whatever, have a bit of dinner, and then take about a day to recover, because I was part-time. It was great. I would recommend being part-time. There aren't enough flexible training posts. There certainly aren't enough senior level or academic posts. I'm just putting that out there now for anyone who's listening. But part-time training is I would recommend it if you can, and if you can afford it. Well, part-time working, because then it allows you to focus on your other interests, and we should all have other interests, be they related to medicine or not. I mean, mine are really writing for wellbeing, writing, helping others in a different way beyond my stethoscope and my clinical skills. But turning the corner was through, and writing poetry. I never wrote poetry as a child. We must have done it, you must have done it at school. I remember reading Cat in the Hat.
We need to have that poetry that you wrote that kind of turned the corner. So we need to,
it was a poem about my brother. Yeah, it was a poem about my brother.
Do you have it at hand, or should we put it in the notes, or
is it there?
We'll put it in the notes.
No.
Too emotional.
No, it's not. It's not. If cool. I should have thought of that. Yeah, I should have checked that with you. But yeah,
that's okay.
That's okay. Poor listeners are like, oh God, Roshni's poetry. All right, you can read it on screen. But yeah, that did, and just being
what did that do to you? What did it slow you down? Did you start sort of processing what happened, or
a little bit? Yeah, recognizing, giving a voice, and that's what I think poetry. I love fiction as well, so that I don't just focus on poetry, but I think poetry, and I think many people who are poets will read poetry, and lots of people have been coming back to poetry, haven't they, during COVID? I mean, the book above my shoulder, poems from the NHS, it's been really popular. Because I think poetry distills and can crystallize in a few words. That's when I'm concise, by the way. I have evidence. So
write your emails in poetry. Maybe that's.
My boss has said that. My last boss did say, "Yeah, your email's too long." I said, "Maybe I'll write you a haiku."
What's a haiku?
3-line poem, syllabic poem. Yeah, not my expertise, but yeah, quite nice to write. So I can do it. I do write them, but I can do it. But coming back to the fact that, I think the poetry has the power to crystallize emotions, experiences that we can't always articulate.
Right.
I hadn't at that stage, what was it, 1997, 98? It was 98 when I wrote my first poem. I hadn't been able to articulate my grief. I mean, I was sort of frozen, really. That's the type of depression I have. Or when I get it, I've had 2 episodes in my life, so 20 years apart. So yeah, and they seem to be related to grief or losing someone. I think I don't do grief, clearly, but who does? So yeah, it's just being mindful of that, and doing what nurtures you. Nature nurtures me. Going out for a stomp. I remember I texted one of my best friends as a GP, one of my oldest friends. This has really annoyed me. I'm going for a stomp with my Nordic sticks. So Nordic walking is something I'm not very energetic and, really overweight, etc. So trying to do a bit, get fit and stuff anyway for a few years. Nordic walking is quite fun. It's social. You can do it, well, before COVID, you can do it in a group. Yeah. So walking with sticks, it's what apparently skiers do when they're off duty.
And you can always hit people with it if you don't like them.
Oh, believe me, social distancing. My stick is at nearly 2 meters. Okay, well, it's less than 2 meters. People have come up and touched me on the shoulder to say, your stick is sticking out, madam. I'm really sorry, didn't mean it to, but you've come now within an inch of me.
Stay away.
I think how ironic it is. Yeah, I have subliminally tried to use my sticks to just, under your arm, you're trying to pile your shopping in. But it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked in the queue. But yeah, many uses. But
have you poked anyone in the eye?
Not yet. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't hurt people intentionally. I do not want anyone to think I would ever hurt anyone intentionally. But let's just say I think creatively when I'm trying to put distance between us, people in queues. But sometimes.
But some of our writing does hurt people. with all
Yeah.
good intentions, we
Yeah.
write, well, some of us don't have good intentions. Some people write to hurt,
Mm,
and that's a different kind of
mm,
kettle of fish. But then, I hope most of us write with a good intention.
with a good intention.
And
Yeah.
even with that good intention, it hurts a lot of people.
Mm. And you touched on that with your book about
Oh my God.
yourself.
The
And I wonder
last,
what impact
the last family meeting we had, it was pandemonium, all because of my book. And I said, look, the intention of writing this book is not to upset you. The intention is to heal myself, which is the primary intention, because I was going through a lot of burnout issues at the time and a lot of psychological distress. And it worked for me. And I thought, to be honest, I thought the book was useless, and I got really depressed and actually suicidal at one stage. Having written the book, thinking to myself, well, what's the point of all this? And then I sent it out as a beta version to a few friends, and I got an email back saying, you saved my life. I was contemplating suicide when I read this, and that was my kind of light bulb moment. I thought, fuck, is it really that? I realized that there was some benefit in my suffering.
No, but that's it. It was amazing, because I was thinking that as I was reading it, like, this would really help X. This would really help. So, like, people I don't even know on social media that I've seen are going through issues. This would really help them. And I think we put, it was part of I posted about it as well.
But I wasn't brave enough to talk about it. And then whatever, whether it's the universe or God or whatever superpower, put me in a situation 4 years later where I was confronted by my family members hating on me because I wrote a few sentences in the book mentioning their names or their characters. And that was even more interesting because it shows their internal dynamics and all their projections onto me, and and then I realized why they were reacting that way, or why they traumatized me in a certain way when I was younger. And so
but isn't that always the way that we look for ourselves? So I was talking about poetry. Sometimes it resonates with people, sometimes it doesn't. I was talking about the fact that it can be you sort of catharsis on the page, but it can also be you sharing an experience like nature. I write a lot about nature. That's pretty universal. I don't tend to write about my deep dark feelings or whatever. Do I have any? I don't know. We all do. But I tend to write things about nature and wider things, but that's because that's what I love. And hey, if anyone loves it,
it talks to you.
It talks to me. It speaks to me. It speaks to my soul. It feeds my soul. So why not, if that's what inspires you? But the collateral damage almost is what I like. I don't know. I like to use that phrase, but maybe that does describe, the collateral damage of then writing something more personal. You take that risk, don't you? It is very vulnerable. Like, I do open mic, and then I realize, and all the transferable skills. Part of the reason I do open mic poetry or readings is, it gives me a buzz now. I used to be a child with stage fright. Now I can, if I could talk to 196 medical students in a lecture, face to face, I could certainly stand up in front of 50 people. And that's the beauty. That's why I love what I do, because it all feeds into each other. It makes me a better educator. It makes me a better person. It just makes me feel richer as a person, and I'm developing.
And has that come with time, or with experience, or just life?
Just life, both, really. It's like, let me push myself out of my comfort zone. You asked me, have I done anything dramatic as a child? No, not really. I just wrote in a memoir piece in class about climbing the apple tree that doesn't exist now. My brother was right at the top. He's brave as anything. He was brilliant, as not just boys, just him, I think. And I was like, oh, really? All right. I mean, I was a bit of a tomboy, but not like, climbing trees tomboy, but it was like, it was really freeing. It was great. I love trees. I haven't climbed one since. But you know what? Like, my life's not over yet.
Maybe that's the next task for you.
Challenge for me. That's as dramatic as I get. I've been up in a hot air balloon. That was fantastic for my 40th.
Oh, I'm scared of heights. I sort of avoid.
I'm fine with them. I mean, don't put me on the precipice of anywhere unnecessarily. But generally I'm okay. And spiders.
No, spiders. I can't handle spiders or high heights.
traumatize everyone listening. They'll be like,
yeah, you've traumatized me now.
we should do like exposure therapy, spiders.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Don't take out a tarantula, just this
No,
instant.
no. I've dusted. There won't be any spiders in my office.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it is. It's just life experience. So, I'm working with new, younger colleagues, and we're having chats, and we can't meet, or online, and saying, yeah, it's life experience. We're just reflecting on our new job and the trials and tribulations of X, Y, and Z, and processes, and yet again another process, an induction, and as you bring all that with you, don't you, to everything you do. You bring your life experience, you bring your professional experience. Sometimes you have to curb it a little bit.
Well, I mean, I found that once I stopped curbing it at work, I was more myself, and okay, I will upset some people, and some patients will make complaints, and I mean, they haven't really made formal complaints, but they say, oh, that doctor's a bit weird, or
wait till they meet me.
Yeah.
You're not meant to agree. You're not meant to agree.
Oh,
I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bit confusing given that you're not kind of working as a doctor.
You don't need to analyze it that thoroughly. That's what I thought we would get on, as I was saying in my email to you, because I think we've got a similar silly sense of humor. I don't take myself seriously, as you can tell.
You don't, but you take your email seriously. Fuck's sakes, like.
All anyone can hear me doing now on this podcast is giggling. It's good. It's good to laugh. The endorphins, it's good to cry and it's good to laugh. The two extremes. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the affect, isn't it? It's all about the emotions. And unfortunately, the whole medical system sort of frown upon the affect.
Well, I think you've touched on it briefly, and many of you haven't. Pauline's podcast was amazing. These are the two most recent I've listened to, sort of like prepare myself to be in the hot seat today, though I've listened to your series before. But it's being your authentic self, isn't it? When can we be our authentic selves? I think what you're getting now is Roshni. I mean, I've cried, I've giggled again,
You've got frustrated. You've got angry.
No, I didn't. Come on.
Well, we need to get that as well, isn't it? A bit more frustration.
No, you don't. What is that? Bruce Banner, Child of the 70s. You don't want to see me angry.
Yeah. I used to love him.
Incredible Hulk. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I used to so love him because I got angry so many times when I was a kid, and I just wasn't allowed to go crazy at all.
Yeah.
Never. It's like the moment you frown.
Yeah.
It stopped in its tracks.
Oh, yes. And yes, I had a very strict mum. So, mother issues back on the therapist couch. So, yeah, that's why I didn't do anything dramatic. And it's God rest her soul, If my mum, I wonder what my mum's reaction would be to me giving up medicine, I often think. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I had to bite the bullet and go to my mum and say, Mum, I'm doing less and less of ophthalmology and more of other things. And I was really scared. I thought she'd bite my head off or whatever. And then she looked at me and she saw that I was, serious, but happy and contented. And I said it in a way where it was me. And she said, son, whatever you want. And I was like, oh.
Wow, that's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's it. I think sometimes we're scared. I got into a pattern as a child where I was just, I'm not going to ask my mum and dad again. I'm not going to ask if I can go out with my friends.
Yeah.
And that was not great for me and my confidence. So I think now I'm partly sort of my brother. He was always brave enough to do stuff and rebel and And, my mum used to go crazy. And she was just very protective. I mean, all mums are, I think. And I think I am the free spirit that I was meant to be, that I always was, but just repressed, sort of like emerging, phoenix rising.
Yeah, I mean, that repression is important because it sort of feeds your creative juices.
Yeah.
And, for a lot of creatives, they've had very repressed pasts.
Yeah.
And, so that repression is unfortunately necessary.
It's necessary. There you go. Thanks, Mum. Thanks, Mum, for a lot of things.
Just a bit of a, just a small analysis there.
No, it's great. Free analysis. That's great. It's funny. Criticism about my emails, analysis, poetry reading requests. I don't know where I am with you.
Yeah, I like it that way because I don't know what's going on either. But we can only tell about ourselves and speak to ourselves and sort of work with ourselves. Yeah. And then that causes ripples for other people to sort of tune into.
Well, this is it. I think we're always mindful, aren't we, of the impact we have. Sometimes we can be too mindful, be too cautious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a fan of the mind. I'm more, a fan of the gut because I love to eat my cakes and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's that feeling, isn't it? When it feels right. Yeah. Which is so non-scientific, so non-medical, which is totally idiosyncratic with our kind of training. Yeah.
Out there, and I'm very much about the out there, as you could probably tell. I've got more so, or whoever, judge me if you want when you're listening. I'm very into Reiki and nature, as you can tell, and anything that works. I was always, and I think people find this, people that know me, they find it, whatever, they're not judging. But it's like, I'm a doctor. I know how to prescribe tablets. I don't know, I'm not up to date, but I know how to prescribe tablets, but there's always something else. Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so happy. I've just got a role as a writer in residence in Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. I'm plugging myself now. I've just joined the team, and that has been a 15-year dream since doing my creative writing degree. Wow. To use writing with patients. So, I happen to be doing it with staff and, in my monthly workshops, etc., and in the exciting commissions I'm getting. But I've always wanted to use writing with patients, coming back to what we said at the start, because writing's helped me. Not just as, I've always loved writing anyway. It's like, right, part of this is, let's just get writing out there just to people. It's such a joy. It's such a joy. Just like some people love art, I'm hopeless, getting into that flow state. That's what happens to me when I write. Not every time. Sometimes, you have to do some homework like I had to for my memoir class. But once that really helped me to write that piece that I wrote about my brother in climbing the tree. And if writing something as simple as cheap and portable can help another person, bring it on. If it can help my colleagues, if it can help medical students, if it can help the person in my local town, which is what my intention was, to do face-to-face groups. And hey, there's Miss Corona arriving. But I would like to do face-to-face groups in my local community. I do stuff with, I've done stuff with my local women's drop-in group, mental health, giving something back. And I will always do that, pro bono, etc., whatever. But if that can help anyone, yes, the downsides, specifically writing for wellbeing, is you're looking at the process of writing and the impact of that on you, as opposed to pure. So it's a mixture of creative writing, reflective writing, which medics are like rolling their eyes. No, don't mention reflective writing. Expressive writing. So creative. I love a Venn diagram. So in my dissertation on potentials of creative writing in healthcare education, so not just for medics, there's a Venn diagram about the mix, the sort of interface of creative writing, expressive writing, reflective writing, journaling, memoir, this type of book that you've written. So if you expressing yourself can help someone else, because we have a commonality as humans, we have common experiences, sounds like we've been through similar things, and then what should I say? Similar journeys, different paths. Yeah, that's quite profound. Similar, I think we all do, don't we? Because we are a community of practice as medics, for example. I've though it's 30 years ago, I've been at medical school. Though it's 25 years ago, I was a house officer. So there is shared experience. There's shared, even if I'm not practicing. And I think that's what I bring as an educator. So no matter how far away I am from clinical practice, there is still value because we have life experience, we have maturity, and we have our professional experiences that we bring in as educators. Whether you're practicing or not, I think there are different pros and cons. But yeah, I think.
The main thing, Roshni, is that it's helping you.
Yeah, it's helping me now, but it's funny, isn't it? Practice what you preach. It's taking me a bit of time to write about.
I've stopped preaching.
I don't preach. Sometimes I do.
But for some reason, people think I preach. I'm not preaching. I really am not.
I wouldn't
You know,
say
I was at sort of some other private medical practice, and they invite me over to do a talk. And one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, but please don't preach." I said, "Well, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying shit." You know,
it might be their perception and their phraseology might need a little bit of adjustment there.
You know, I mean, sometimes if you're a bit too kind of, they think, "Oh," and it's
fair enough.
Yeah,
but sometimes people aren't ready for that. I mean, this is lovely just to have a normal conversation, because you know we can never have scripted this. I've not rehearsed this. We've not gone through this before, have we? It's organic. It's what evolves. That's how I am, and I think that's how you are.
It just sprouts out. I like the sprouting.
Exactly, and I think that's the best type of thinking. So it's through that thinking and through writing for me and having these sort of discussions, which is just a real pleasure. Can I just say, a real pleasure, to connect with you, and thank you for the opportunity. Is just gets me thinking of new things. I love that. Developing myself. I eventually come back to what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's what I love about learning and helping other people develop themselves. And I know you do coaching. I've not trained as a coach, but mentoring and pastoral support of healthcare professionals, particularly medical students, is a real big passion of mine. Always has been, in training doctors and stuff. That's what I miss about medicine. I miss being part of that team. You can
still get back in somehow. I'm sure your creative juices will.
I could. Oh no. I'm really. I'll use the words happy and fulfilled are the word phrases I've been using all year, maybe since last year, since I set up Storied Selves, the little Storied Selves.
Contented, business.
Content is the word I prefer. Happiness. I'm going to be like Madonna, Roshni. Happiness is not overrated, but it's not a word I use terribly a lot. Content. I like the word content.
You know, it's like having your cake, but then you can have the cherry on top. That's the happiness.
I like the cake extended metaphor. I like it. Yeah, I love cake too.
So, I mean, let's end with this. Having gone through what you've gone through, what would you say to the Roshni 6 weeks before finals? What are the 3 things you would tell her?
Keep being your authentic self. You'll get through this. And just keep doing you, which wasn't in my phraseology when I was 18 or 26 or whatever. I don't know if that's particularly.
But I mean, who was she? I mean, if she wasn't herself, what roles or what persons did she take on that wasn't her?
Oh, she took on. I only thought about this not recently, in the last few years. I was a child carer effectively for a part of my life. My mum had brittle asthma. I've been through therapy, so I know. That whole inner child work effectively. That I know I was responsible. I've always been, and that's probably what they mean. Old head on young shoulders. I've been responsible. Stuff. My parents didn't get on, so there's always that. There's a sense of response. I'm the older sister. The older sibling position. So that's what I'm like with my friends. I don't have children, but that's what I'd be like with friends, and that's why I'm very much I'm sort of the big sister, sometimes a bit maybe a bit motherly, but I am a nurturing person. So, but about I'm nurturing myself more. Who was Roshni at 26 is very much who Roshni is now, but very different in that. Maybe answering Mike's question is, I've got more of a voice. I feel more confident to be able to share my voice. You would ask me, well, I hadn't known about podcasts before, but if you'd asked me to do this 10 years ago, when I was 26, no way would you have got me. I'm like, why? What? Me? What? No. But now I feel comfortable to be able to do it. And I sent you the essay of an email before about sort of areas that I will bring up if not. Wow, that's really controlling, Roshni. That's another bit of therapy that needs doing. But no, it was just to inform you. This is what I've been through. These are the areas that we might touch on, and let me do it. We'll go with the flow. I hope we've done that.
Well, it's been.
Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, that's absolutely fine, and there are lots of people out there who will listen to this and will make a massive difference to their lives.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Roshni. Thank you.
Real pleasure with you, meeting you as well. Thank you. Thanks for your time.